Welcome to the reading of the Sabbath School lesson for the second quarter of 2022. Welcome to lesson number 10 in the series on Genesis. It's titled Jacob Israel, ready for teaching on June 4, and I'm Percy Harrold. Monday, May 30. The brothers meet. From Peniel, the face of God, we read in Genesis 32:30, the place where he had this experience with God, Jacob moves now to meet with his brother. After 20 years of separation, Jacob sees him coming with 400 men, as we'll read in Genesis 33 verse 1. Jacob is worried and therefore prepares himself and his family for whatever might happen. Read Genesis chapter 33. What connection is there between Jacob's experience of seeing the face of God at Peniel and Jacob's experience of seeing the face of his brother? What is the implication of this connection in regard to our relationship with God and our relationship with our brothers, whoever they may be? Genesis 33, beginning at verse 1. Now Jacob lifted his eyes and looked, and there Esau was coming, and with him were 400 men. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the two maidservants. And he put the maidservants and their children in front, Leah and her children behind, and Rachel and Joseph last. Then he crossed over before them and bowed himself to the ground 7 times, until he came near to his brother. But Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. And he lifted his eyes and saw the women and children and said, "Who are these with you?" So he said, "The children whom God has graciously given your servant." Then the maidservants came near, they and their children, and bowed down. And Leah also came near with her children, and they bowed down. Afterward Joseph and Rachel came near, and they bowed down. Then Esau said, "What do you mean by all this company which I meet?" And he said, "These are to find favour in the sight of my Lord." But Esau said, "I have enough, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself." And Jacob said, "No, please, if I have now found favour in your sight, then receive my present from my hand, inasmuch as I have seen your face as though I had seen the face of God, and you were pleased with me. Please take my blessing that is brought to you, because God has graciously dealt with me, and because I have enough." So he urged him, and he took it. Then Esau said, "Let us take our journey, let us go, and I will go before you." But Jacob said to him, "My Lord knows that the children are weak, and the flocks and herds which are nursing are with me. And if the men should drive them hard one day, all the flock will die. Please let my Lord go on ahead before his servant. I will lead on slowly at a pace which the livestock that go before me and the children are able to endure, until I come to my Lord in Seir." And Esau said, "Now let me leave with you some of the people who are with me." But he said, "What need is there? Let me find favour in the sight of the Lord." So Esau returned that day on his way to Seir, and Jacob journeyed to Succoth, built himself a house, and made booths for his livestock. Therefore the name of the place is called Succoth. Then Jacob came safely to the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, when he came from Paddan Aram, and he pitched his tent before the city. And he bought the parcel of land where he had pitched his tent from the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. Then he erected an altar there and called it Elohe Israel. Jacob bows himself 7 times before his brother in verse 3, whom he calls several times my Lord, in Genesis 33 verses 8, 13 and 15, and with whom he identifies himself as his servant. Genesis 33 verse 5. We'll compare that with Genesis chapter 32 verse 4. And he commanded them, saying, "Speak thus to my lord Esau. Thus your servant Jacob says, I have dwelt with Laban and stayed there until now." And verse 18, "Then you shall say, They are your servant Jacob's. It is a present sent to my lord Esau, and behold, he also is behind us. And verse 20, and also say, behold, your servant Jacob is behind us. For he said, I will appease him with the present that goes before me, and afterward I will see his face. Perhaps he will accept me. Significantly, Jacob's 7 bows echo his father's 7 blessings in Genesis chapter 27 to 29. And he came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his clothing and blessed him, and said, surely the smell of my son is like the smell of a field, which the Lord has blessed. Therefore may God give you of the dew of the heaven, of the fatness of the earth, and plenty of grain and wine. Let people serve you, and nations bow down to you. Be master over your brethren, and let your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be those who bless you. Furthermore, when he bows, he specifically reverses his father's blessing about nations bowing down to you, as we read in verse 29, let people serve you and nations bow down to you. It is as if Jacob's intention was to pay his debt to his brother and return the blessing that he had stolen from him. We look at Genesis 33 verse 11. Please take my blessing that is brought to you, because God has dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. So he urged him, and he took it. When Esau saw his brother, against all expectations, he ran to Jacob, and instead of killing him, he kissed him, and they wept, we read in Genesis 33 verse 4. Later, Jacob commented to Esau, I have seen your face as though I had seen the face of God, in verse 10. The reason for Jacob's extraordinary statement was his understanding that Esau had forgiven him. The Hebrew verb ratzah, R-A-T-S-A-H, or pleased, in verse 10, is a theological term referring to any sacrifice that is pleasing, accepted by God, which then implies divine forgiveness, as we read in Leviticus chapter 22, verse 27. When a bull or a sheep or a goat is born, it shall be 7 days with its mother, and from the 8th day and thereafter it shall be accepted as an offering made by fire to the Lord. And Amos chapter 5 and verse 22. Though you offer me burnt offerings and your grain offering, I will not accept them, nor will I regard your fattened peace offerings. Jacob's experience of God's forgiveness at Peniel, where he saw the face of God, is now repeated in his experience of his brother's forgiveness, which he identifies as if he saw the face of God. Jacob lives a second Peniel, the first one preparing for the second one. Jacob has been forgiven by God and by his own brother. Truly, he now must have understood, even more than before, the meaning of grace. And so to finish the day, what have you learned about grace from how others, besides the Lord, have forgiven you? This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind. Sponsored by the Sabbath School Department and distributed through Hope Channel Australia, this podcast is also redistributed by Hope Channel Germany, Christian Record Services for the Blind, and It Is Written. It is also available on SoundCloud and through multiple podcast distributors, including Apple iTunes. Remember, God is always faithful.